It wasn't your fault, not entirely anyway. He just wanted a quiet coffee, but fate had other plans when he walked into that cafe. You were in the corner, peacefully scrolling through your phone when the man in the hoodie started arguing with the cashier. His deep voice carried a tone that silenced everyone. He didn't shout, he didn't have to. His very presence commanded attention. Unfortunately, that presence unnerved you, and before you realized it, you whispered under your breath, "If I were a mafia boss's wife, I would never let my husband behave like that." You thought no one heard you, but fate loves irony. "Hey miss," the cashier called out, pointing directly at you. "Since you have got so many opinions, why don't you deal with him? You are married to a mafia boss, right?" All eyes turned to you, including his. The man stopped mid-sentence, tilting his head, and turned towards you. His sharp gaze locked onto yours, spinning you to your seat. Time seemed to slow, and your heart dropped into your stomach. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was smooth but laced with danger. Yes, that's right," you blurted, surprising even yourself. "I'm the wife of a famous mafia boss." The room fell silent. You wanted to take back those words, but it was too late. In panic, you said something you wish you won't regret much. Jungkook's brow quirked and a smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "You're the wife of a mafia boss, huh?" As much as you were shivering from inside and cursing yourself for telling such a crazy lie, you tried to remain confident in front of the man who looks same as your age or maybe a few years older. All eyes were on you. Yes, and not just any mafia boss, the most famous one." He stepped closer, his tall frame towering over you. "Really? And who might that be?" You hesitated for a split second before blurting out the first name that came to your mind, "John Jungkook. I'm sure you must have heard how ruthless and dangerous he is." A few gasps echoed around the cafe. Jungkook's lips twitched, but he quickly schooled his expression into one of surprise. "John Jungkook?" he repeated, his voice dripping with mock curiosity. "Yes," you said, standing your ground, "and he wouldn't be happy to know that his wife, who is also pregnant with his child, is being stressed out by people like you." His eyes widened slightly at that, but the smirk never left his face. "Pregnant?" he said, crossing his arms. "Yes," you said, doubling down. "So I suggest you drop whatever attitude you have got going on because my husband is very protective." Jungkook nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Interesting. I would love to meet this husband of yours sometime," he said smoothly. "Trust me, you wouldn't," you said, trying to appear more confident than you felt. Well, let's just say he's not a fan of anyone who messes with me, his beloved wife." "Sounds like a dangerous man," Jungkook said, his tone laced with amusement. "Okay, but I'm glad I met his beloved wife and also the mother of his soon-to-be child, right?" You nodded. "He is," you insisted, now fully committed to your lie, "and he doesn't take kindly to people questioning me." "Noted," Jungkook said, his smirk growing wider. "But tell me what it's like being married to John Jungkook." Uh, Amazing," you said, scrambling to sound convincing. "He's powerful, protective, and really good looking." "Good looking, huh?" Jungkook asked, clearly enjoying himself. "Absolutely," you said, nodding with exaggerated enthusiasm. "And he's also very romantic, like flowers and candlelit dinners." "Kind of romantic?" Jungkook chuckled, softly shaking his head. "Sounds like quite the catch. He must love you so much to do such things. Most mafias don't do that." "He is, because he loves me more than anything," you said, crossing your arms as if you weren't making this all up on the spot. "And you would better believe that if he finds out about this, he will—" "Find out about what?" Jungkook interrupted, leaning in closer. His proximity made your heart race, but you forced yourself to hold your ground. "About you being rude to me." "Me? Rude? I think I have been nothing but polite," he said, blinking innocently. You were arguing with the cashier, he said, crossing her arms. Only because they overcharged me, he said with a shrug. The room grew quiet again as the two of you stared each other down. Finally, Jungkook straightened up and smiled, a small, almost genuine smile. Well, it seems I have been put in my place. I wouldn't want to upset the wife of such a powerful man, he said. Good, you said, lifting your chin. Glad we are clear on that. Jungkook nodded, his smirk never fading. Very clear, he said, his tone dripping with amusement. And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving you to wonder what just happened and why the man who had terrified the entire cafe seemed so entertained by you. Damn, he was so handsome. I wish I didn't mess up. You turn only to find everyone clapping, praising your bravery. The cashier came near you. Thank you so much, ma'am. You smiled. You don't need to thank me. I was just doing what I could. You quickly left because you didn't want to keep them thinking you are the real wife of a mafia boss you didn't see the face of. You have heard of his name a few times but never seen his face. It had been a week since the incident at the cafe, and you had done your best to push it out of your mind. Surely you had never seen that mysterious man again, and the whole thing would eventually become a funny story to tell your friends, minus a few embellishments, of course. But fate had other plans. You were at a gala event hosted by one of your company's biggest clients. It was the kind of event where people in suits and gowns mingled, clinked glasses, and spoke in hushed tones about deals you had never understood. You weren't thrilled about attending, but work was work. That's when you saw him. He stood near the bar, dressed in a sleek black suit that fit him so perfectly it looked custom made. His dark hair was styled back, and the sharp lines of his jaw could have cut glass. It was him, the man from the cafe. Your heart skipped a beat and you immediately turned around, hoping he wouldn't notice you. Oh my god, tell me it's just my imagination. It can't be true, it's impossible. But it was too late. Fancy seeing you here. A familiar voice drawled behind you. You froze slowly, you turned around, plastering the most neutral expression you could manage onto your face. Oh, hi, you again? He smirked, a glint of amusement in his eyes. You didn't think we would meet again, did you? Not really, you admitted, feeling a bead of sweat form on your brow. Before you could come up with a plausible excuse to escape, the MC's voice boomed through the speakers. Please welcome our esteemed guest of honor tonight, the one and only John Jungkook. Your heart stopped and eyes widened. Surely it wasn't. But then the crowd erupted in applause and all eyes turned to him, the man who had been toying with you since the cafe, the man you had unknowingly claimed to be married to. Your jaw dropped as Jungkook smirked at you one last time before stepping up onto the stage, grabbing the microphone and with the confidence of someone who had the world at his feet. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this warm welcome. It's an honor to be here tonight. His voice sent shivers down your spine. You couldn't hear the rest of his speech over the sound of your own mortification. Your brain replayed every word you had said at the cafe, calling him your husband, claiming to be pregnant with his child, and basically painting yourself as the queen of his imaginary empire. As he wrapped up his speech, Jungkook's gaze swept over the crowd until it landed on you. He winked. You wanted the floor to swallow you whole. But it wasn't over. Oh no, Jungkook wasn't done yet. As the night went on, he made his way through the crowd, stopping to chat with important-looking people. You tried to keep your distance, but somehow he always ended up near you. Finally, you couldn't take it anymore. You slipped out onto the balcony, hoping to get some air and collect your thoughts, or to say the truth, hide from him because you can't run away and you were too embarrassed to face him after everything. You're not very good at hiding. A familiar voice said behind you, making you flinch. You gulped, awkwardly turning back. Jungkook was leaning casual against the door frame, his hands tucked into his pockets. You pointed at him, words failing you. Me, he said, stepping closer. John Jungkook, famous mafia boss, apparently, and your husband, if I remember correctly. Uh, he wanted to deny everything, but the smirk on his face told you he already knew. Look, that was a misunderstanding. He tilted his head, smiling slightly. A misunderstanding? You seemed pretty confident at the time. You even added the part about being pregnant. Bold move, by the way. You bit your lips, completely embarrassed, but he was enjoying it. I must say. He began leaning casual against the railing. You have got a very vivid imagination. My wife, the mother of my unborn child, quite the story you cooked up back there. I can explain. You stammered, your face burning. It wasn't real. I didn't mean. He stepped closer, cutting off your rambling with a raised hand. Oh, I know it wasn't real, but you seemed very convincing, almost made me believe I had forgotten I got married. You wanted to shrink into the floor. Look, I panicked, okay? The cafe staff was staring at me and you look so intimidating. Intimidating? Do I still look intimidating now? Despite the embarrassment and panic, your heart skipped a beat. It was hard to tell he's a mafia everyone fears. He looks so normal, so like a guy you won't hesitate to fall for. Yes, he did, but you weren't about to admit that. Instead, you shook your head quickly. No, not at all. Completely normal. Totally approachable. Jungkook chuckled, the sound rich and deep. You are a terrible liar. Before you could respond, he took another step closer, his expression turning more serious. You do realize, though, that claiming to be my wife comes with certain responsibilities, right? Your throat went dry. Responsibilities? He nodded, his gaze dropping briefly to your midsection before meeting your eyes again. You did say you are the mother of my unborn child, and I take my responsibilities very seriously. Your jaw dropped. What? No, I mean, imagine my surprise when I heard my supposed wife proudly declaring our future together, my child's future. You can't just throw those kind of statements around lightly, you know. It was a joke. You hissed, glancing around to make sure no one overheard, but he was enjoying teasing you, was it? Because you seemed pretty passionate about it. You groaned, covering your face with your hands. Can you please stop? This is already the most embarrassing moment of my life. Oh, I'm just getting started. After all, I'm a very protective husband and an even more protective father. It was the first time he found himself smiling. You peeked at him through your fingers, your mortification reaching new heights. There is no baby. Not yet, but maybe soon. John Jungkook, you yelled while he laughed as the corner of his eyes crinkled. All right, he said, holding up his hands in mock surrender. But you have got to admit, this is kind of funny. It's not funny. You are never letting this go, are you? You muttered, crossing your arms. He smirked, leaning forward. Not until I get what I want. And what, pray tell, is that? You asked, narrowing your eyes. You. He said simply, the teasing lilt in his voice gone. His gaze locked on yours, and you felt your breath hitch. You blinked, your brain short circuiting. What? I want you for real, not as part of some ridiculous misunderstanding or pretend scenario. I've never met anyone like you. Someone who is confident, funny, and completely unpredictable. It's refreshing. You stare at him, unable to process what he was saying. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? He asked, tilting his head slightly. No, he didn't, and that terrified you. Look, Jungkook, I'm not sure you are thinking this through. We barely know each other, and you're A mafia boss? He finished for you, smirking again. Well, yeah. And yet you still stood in front of a room full of people and called yourself my wife. Fate works in funny ways, doesn't it? Your cheeks turned pink. That wasn't fate, it was panic. You said, looking away while he smiled, finding you cute. Call it whatever you want. The point is, I'm interested and I think you are too, even if you don't want to admit it. You opened your mouth to protest, but nothing came out. He wasn't exactly wrong. There was something about him, his confidence, his charm, his unpredictability, that drew you in, even if you hated to admit it. So here's my proposal, he said, pulling you out of your spiraling thoughts. Your eyes widened. Proposal? Relax, he said, chuckling. Not that kind of proposal yet. Yet, your face heating up, he grinned, clearly enjoying your reaction. Here's the deal. Let's go on a proper date. Get to know each other. No mafia drama, no fake stories, just you and me. What do you say? You hesitated, your thoughts racing. This man was dangerous, there was no doubt about that, but there was something about him that made it hard to say no. The way he looked at you, a mix of amusement and something serious, left you flustered. Fine, you said, trying to sound braver than you felt. One date, but if you pull any mafia stuff, I'm done. Deal. He replied, a small smirk on his lips. He stood up, towering over you for a moment, then he leaned down, his face so close you could feel his breath. Your heart raced and your cheeks burned with embarrassment. Oh, and one more thing, he said, his voice low and teasing. What now? You asked, barely managing to meet his gaze. I wasn't joking earlier. I'm very protective of my wife and our future child. Your cheeks turned pink and you looked down while he chuckled softly.